Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome once again to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, the YouTube channel, and NoDQ&A videos affiliate, RingsideNews.com. WWE Royal Rumble is live on pay-per-view this coming Sunday. NoDQ.com is your source for coverage, news, rumors, and of course, live play-by-play results. Got your questions here from spring.me/AaronRiff, the place where you can submit questions. So let's get started. First one today, he is back. Kayfabe Candy Ass. Do you think Dolph Ziggler's push down the card has anything to do with maybe him catching heat for Jerry Lawler's heart attack? On the Steve Austin show, Lawler said his doctor said those hard multiple elbows could have done it. I don't think WWE is blaming Dolph Ziggler for what happened with Jerry Lawler. Accidents happen, and Dolph Ziggler had no idea what was going on with Jerry Lawler. Nobody did. So you can't really blame Ziggler or anyone else for what happened to Jerry Lawler. If anything, WWE shouldn't have put a guy at Lawler's age in the ring. That's the bottom line. You know, the deal with Dolph Ziggler and his push going down is just the fact that first he got hurt. He had the concussion right after he won the world title. And then there was this interview he did, and I guess he got some heat for that. Which is a really stupid reason to not push a guy because of something he says in an interview. But yeah, I mean, Dolph Ziggler's push, there's a lot of other factors, and I don't think that the Jerry Lawler heart attack had anything to do with it. If WWE was upset about that, he wouldn't have won the world title in the first place. All right, this one comes from Angel OP6. 2 questions, one is pretty short. Do you think with Tommy Dreamer taking Jeff Jarrett's place, will he be able to help TNA at all? And at the Royal Rumble, do you think the Cena-Orton match will be before or after the Rumble? Regarding Tommy Dreamer's involvement with TNA, I don't think it's going to make any kind of real difference. I'm sure that it's good to have somebody like Tommy Dreamer who has a lot of experience in the wrestling business being a part of the company. I mean, that's definitely a positive, but in the overall scheme of things, it's not going to turn TNA's fortunes around, let's put it that way. So it's not that big of a deal. And regarding the Royal Rumble, I think that if Randy Orton is retaining the title, that match will go on sometime in the middle of the show, and the Royal Rumble match itself will be the main event. If John Cena is winning the title, I could see that closing out the show. Usually WWE likes to have the baby face go over at the very end of the show. So I think it all depends on what they have planned. But, if Batista's winning the Royal Rumble, I think you're best off having that close the show. You should end it with the Royal Rumble match. And, the Royal Rumble match is the top draw. Let's face it. That's what people are ordering the pay-per-view to see is the Royal Rumble match. So you might as well let that be the main event, which it is. And, that's the match that's leading up to WrestleMania. All right, this one comes from WWE Fan 5. Hey, Aaron, do you agree that Sean Waltman is very underrated? I think he deserves more credit than he gets. I agree with you on that. I have always been a big fan of Sean Waltman, going back to the 1-2-3 Kid. And, he had some of the best matches in WWE during that New Generation era. I specifically remember a match with him and Bret Hart on Raw 1994. That was a tremendous match. And a lot of people just saw him as, a random guy who was just buddies with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and didn't really have any kind of drawing power. But I think when he came back to WWE in 1998 and came out with Triple H, I mean, that proved to me right there that he meant something. And I really saw that, watching that felt like a turning point when he came out there and he ripped into WCW, and, Eric Bischoff had just fired him thinking he didn't mean anything. And he came out there, and Raw seemed like the cool show to watch when he came out there, and DX felt like a big deal. So, I think that he did play a more important part in the Monday Night Wars than people like to give him credit for. And as X-Pac, he had a lot of great matches during that period, 98, 99, 2000. I mean, he was at the top of his game, and he was able to hold his own with the best in the company, the Chris Jerichos, the Chris Benoits, and so on. All right, this one comes from WWE Fan Dark Arrow. Hey, Aaron, what will be your favorite part of the WWE Network? I look forward to watching all the old pay-per-views. I agree with you on that. I think that a big incentive for me as a fan is the fact that you can watch all the old pay-per-views, and I think it's wise to offer all those pay-per-views because you can draw in the old wrestling fans from the 90s that gave up on wrestling once the Monday Night Wars ended. And, it's a good way to get them interested and subscribing to the network, and maybe once they're subscribed and they're watching other WWE footage, maybe they'll become fans again. So that's another good reason to have those pay-per-views available. And the other thing is obviously the live pay-per-views, getting that package deal where you pay the $60 or whatever for a 6-month subscription, but you get every single pay-per-view. So, I mean, that's a tremendous value, instead of having to pay the $60 a month for the pay-per-views. All right, this one comes from York Master. Hey Aaron, first time asker, please answer in video. What are your thoughts on the Authority seemingly going from the most over heels to tweeners? Please answer in video. Well, I'm not a huge fan of it. Triple H and Stephanie, one week they're heels, the next week Triple H is coming out there doing the DX catchphrases. And, it was fine when him and Shawn Michaels came out for the network announcement and they were doing the DX routine. That's one thing. But, when he's on Raw or SmackDown acting like a babyface, I just think it's counterproductive. And, it's hard to really get into the storyline when it's not clear, are these guys bad guys or are they good guys? And it's once again, WWE trying to blur the lines, and it just doesn't work when you don't know who to cheer for, who to boo for. You tend not to react at all because you're just confused and you don't have any emotional investment in the characters. All right, this one comes from T for Nora. Hey Aaron, when do you think would be a correct time to stop these Undertaker versus whoever WrestleMania matches? If I was Undertaker, I would have stopped at 20-0. I think you can continue having Undertaker compete at WrestleMania. Number one, as long as his body holds out. And number two, as long as you have a credible opponent for him to face. And obviously, there's a very short list of guys at this point that could face The Undertaker, and you could believe that they would be able to end the streak. There's not that many people. You have John Cena, Brock Lesnar, and maybe The Rock, a few other guys. The Undertaker has to be in there with top-tier guys at this point. You can't put him in there with a Mark Henry or whatever. People just wouldn't buy into it with the streak being what it is. I think he could go maybe another year or two. I definitely think it's getting close to the end for him. Maybe next year, WrestleMania 31 would be a fitting place to call it a career, but we'll see. We'll see who ends up facing this year, and I still think that they should do Undertaker and Cena before Undertaker retires. All right, this one comes from CPW 1978. Do you think Sheamus will return at the Rumble? Also, if the Shield splits up, do you see a new faction forming? Regarding Sheamus, I think the odds are actually quite good that he will be at the Royal Rumble as a surprise entrant. He's ready to come back at any time now, and he's kind of been out of the headlines. Nobody's been talking about him, so that makes me think that there's a very good chance he'll be back at the Royal Rumble, and he'll be one of the surprise entrants. Maybe Christian too, who's expected back at any time. As far as the Shield splitting up and a new faction forming, I don't really think it's necessary. You still have the Wyatt family as the dominant heel faction, and there's really no need to have another heel faction. It shouldn't be like TNA, Vince Russo overkill, where you have constant factions. It's not necessary to have them around all the time. You already got the Shield. Maybe you could start up a babyface faction to feud with the Wyatts, but I don't see the point in another heel faction at least. All right, that'll do it for this edition of NoDQ&A video. Subscribe if you haven't already, youtube.com/NoDQCAW. Tell a friend on Facebook or Twitter. And don't forget about the live coverage of the Royal Rumble this Sunday at NoDQ.com. And before I sign off here, I got one final question from NTODAC. Hey Aaron, now that there's a title versus contract match with Magnus and Sting, do you think that there's a possibility of Sting coming in for WrestleMania 30? Please answer in video. And another person asked me about Sting being in the Hall of Fame this year, not necessarily having to wrestle. Do I think that that's a possibility? The rumors are starting up again, and here's a little spoiler, not much of a spoiler. If you don't want to be spoiled, then you can just shut off the video. But Sting lost the match against Magnus. Magnus tore up the contract. And Sting is really done with TNA, not just in storyline, but in real life as well, at least for the time being, of course. You know, I think that the odds are fairly decent. I think that if Sting wants the WrestleMania appearance, if he wants the Hall of Fame, I think WWE would be more than willing to give it to him. And now is good timing because number one, the Warrior is going in, and you could have the Warrior and Sting as co-headliners, and that's fitting because they were a tag team early on in their careers as the Blade Runners. And the other thing is that you have the WWE Network launching, and Sting was a big part of those WCW pay-per-views. So you bring Sting back for WrestleMania 30, you know, you'll get people excited about the network and wanting to subscribe and see some of his old matches. And going back to earlier, too, you have old fans that stopped watching wrestling. They subscribe to the network, and they find out that Sting is coming in for WrestleMania 30 or doing the Hall of Fame or whatever, and that might convert them back into regular viewers. So it's a win-win situation for WWE and for Sting as well, so he can end his career on a high note, as it should be. He doesn't necessarily have to wrestle at WrestleMania 30. I know a lot of people want to see Undertaker and Sting, but you know, at the very least, a Hall of Fame induction would seem very fitting and a great way for him to end his career on a high note. So hopefully we see it. But like I've said in other videos, I think the ball is in his court, and it's ultimately his decision if he wants to agree to a deal with WWE. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time for another edition of No DQ&A video.